I became a temporary dad after my sister's car crash. My best friend moved in to help me survive, but now that my sister is coming home, our time is running out. The kitchen floor was cold. Mark sat with his back against the dishwasher, legs sprawled. He wore gray sweatpants he had worn yesterday and a hoodie with a white stain on the shoulder. Spit up or yogurt. He didn't know anymore. The kitchen was a wreck. A box of Cheerios lay upturned, covering the floor in crunch. A carton of milk lay on its side, dripping slowly onto the linoleum. Drip, drip, drip. And the noise. Chloe, his 2-year-old niece, sat in her high chair. She wasn't just crying. She was screaming. A high-pitched, constant shriek that made Mark's teeth ache. Leo, 7 years old, sat at the island. He stared at his iPad with dead eyes, wearing headphones. He hadn't spoken since the police knocked on the door 3 days ago. Mark closed his eyes. His sister, Elena, and her husband, Dave, were in the hospital. A drunk driver on the interstate. It was bad. Concussions. A broken leg for Dave. A fractured wrist and ribs for Elena. They were alive, but they were hooked up to monitors hours away. Mark was here, and Mark was a 32-year-old software architect whose biggest responsibility last week was watering a plant. "Chloe, please," Mark whispered. "Stop." She threw a spoon at him. It hit his knee. He checked his watch. 8:15 a.m. He had been awake since 3 a.m. He had to get Leo to school. He had to change Chloe. He had to clean the milk. He couldn't move. His chest felt tight. He was looking at a puddle of 2% milk, and he couldn't figure out the first step to fixing it. He pulled his phone out. His hand shook. He didn't scroll. He pressed the speed dial he had set up in college. It rang twice. "Mark," her voice was clear. "Awake. I can't do this." Mark croaked. His voice cracked. "Sarah, I'm going to break." "Stay there," she said. She didn't ask what was wrong. She hung up. Mark dropped the phone on the Cheerios. He put his head in his hands and waited. The front door unlocked 12 minutes later. Sarah had a key. She walked into the kitchen. She stopped in the doorway, wearing leggings and an oversized cable-knit sweater. Her hair was up in a messy bun, secured by a clip. She looked at the milk, the screaming toddler, the silent 7-year-old, the man on the floor who hadn't showered in 3 days. She didn't speak. She walked to the high chair, picked up a slice of apple from the tray, and handed it to Chloe. "Bite," Sarah said calmly. Chloe stopped screaming to inspect the apple. The silence was sudden and heavy. Sarah stepped over the milk puddle and crouched down in front of Mark. She smelled like vanilla body wash and rain. "Hey," she said. Mark looked up. His eyes were red-rimmed. "I ruined the kitchen." "It's just milk, Mark. I don't know where Leo's shoes are. I don't know if Chloe is allergic to strawberries. I don't know when Elena is coming home." "Okay," Sarah said. She put her hands on his knees. "Up. I can't. Up. Now." He groaned, but he stood. He towered over her. "Go shower," Sarah said, steering him toward the hallway. "Use soap. Shave. Put on pants that have a zipper. But the milk. I've got the milk. I've got the shoes. I've got the kids." "Sarah, go." He went. When he came back down 20 minutes later, he felt human again. Damp hair, clean jeans, t-shirt. The kitchen wasn't perfect, but the milk was gone. The Cheerios were swept into a pile. Leo was wearing his shoes and eating toast. Chloe was in the living room, watching cartoons. Sarah stood at the sink, washing the milk carton. Mark stood in the doorway. The relief made his knees weak. "You didn't have to come," he said. Sarah turned off the tap and dried her hands. She looked at him. She saw the tremor in his hands. "I brought a bag," she said. Mark blinked. "What?" "I packed a bag. I'm staying in the guest room. Just for a few days. Until the parents are mobile and you get a rhythm." Mark stared at her. He thought about doing this alone again tonight. The fear was a cold weight in his gut. He crossed the room. He didn't ask. He wrapped his arms around her and buried his face in her neck. He held on tight. She was solid. She was warm. "Thank you." He muffled against her sweater. Sarah hesitated. Then her arms came up, wrapping around his waist. "I've got you," she whispered. "We're okay." They fell into a routine that was less about living and more about logistics. Sarah took over the schedule. She bought a whiteboard and wrote down feeding times, bath times, and Leo's school bus number. "It's not micromanaging," she said, capping a red marker. "It's survival." Mark handled the physical labor. He carried Chloe when she refused to walk. He wrestled Leo into his coat. He drove the minivan. On Tuesday night, Mark tried to put Chloe's hair into a ponytail. His hands were too big, and the rubber band was too small. "I'm going to hurt her," Mark muttered, sweating. "I'm going to pull it too tight." Sarah walked by with a laundry basket. She stopped and watched him struggle. "You look like you're trying to perform surgery with oven mitts." "It feels like it," Mark said. "If I mess this up," she starts screaming again. Sarah set the basket down. She walked over and stood behind him. "Here," she said. She reached around him. Her chest pressed against his back. Her arms came around his sides, her small hands covering his large ones. "Loosen your grip," she said, right by his ear. "You're holding it like a tool. Hold it gently." Mark froze. He could feel the heat of her body radiating through his shirt. He could smell the vanilla again. "Gently," he repeated. His voice sounded rough. She guided his fingers. "Twist. Pull. Secure." "There," she said. She stepped back. The loss of contact was immediate. "Thanks," Mark said, clearing his throat. "Don't mention it." She picked up the laundry basket. Her cheeks were pink. "Pizza is here. Cut the crusts off for Chloe." She walked away. Mark stared at the ponytail. It was crooked, but it held. Wednesday was bath night. It wasn't a bath. It was water damage waiting to happen. Chloe had decided that water belonged outside the tub. She slapped the surface hard, sending sheets of water over the rim. "No splashing," Mark said, wiping water out of his eyes. Chloe giggled and hit the water again. A wave soaked Mark's jeans from thighs to ankles. The floor was covered. Sarah walked in, holding a fresh towel. She looked at Mark, dripping wet, hair plastered to his forehead, and stopped. "You're soaking wet," she said. "She's a seal," Mark said. "She's a slippery seal." Sarah knelt beside the tub, ignoring the puddles soaking into her leggings. She grabbed a rubber duck. "Chloe, look," she said. While Chloe grabbed the duck, Sarah nodded at Mark. "Lift." Mark grabbed the toddler, hoisted her out, and wrapped her in the towel before she could protest. "Teamwork," Sarah said, standing up. She brushed water off her sweater. Mark looked at the floor. He looked at the chaos. "I think I have bubble bath in my ear," he said. "Probably," Sarah said. She reached out and brushed a spot of foam off his nose. It was a small gesture, domestic. "You look good wet," she said, then looked away quickly. "I mean, you know, clean." Mark stared at her. "Thanks." They stood there for a second, surrounded by humid air and the smell of lavender soap. "Pajamas," Sarah said, turning to the door. "We need pajamas." The nights were the hardest. Chloe had night terrors. She woke up screaming at 2 a.m., disoriented and wanting her mom. On Thursday, Mark walked into the hallway, rubbing sleep from his eyes. He stopped. Sarah's door was open. He walked to the nursery. The room was dim, lit only by a salt lamp. Sarah sat in the rocking chair, wearing plaid pajama pants and a tank top. Her hair was loose. She rocked Chloe, humming quietly. Chloe was asleep on her chest, heavy and still. Mark leaned against the doorframe. He watched. He had known Sarah for 8 years. He had seen her hungover. He had seen her dressed up for dates. He had never seen her like this. She looked tired. No makeup. A small stain on her shirt. She looked beautiful. It hurt to look at her. Sarah looked up. She saw him. She didn't startle. She just smiled. "Go back to bed," she whispered. "I got her." "I can take a shift," Mark whispered back. "She's out. If I move her, she wakes up." Mark walked into the room. He didn't leave. He sat on the floor, leaning back against the crib. "I'll wait until you put her down," he said, "in case the floor creaks." Sarah kept rocking. The chair squeaked rhythmically. "You're doing good, Mark," she said softly. "I'm terrified all the time. I keep thinking about Elena in that car." "But they're here," Sarah said. "And you're here. That's the job. Being scared means you care." He looked up at her. The orange light caught the curve of her neck. "I couldn't do this without you," he said. "I mean it. You'd figure it out." "I don't want to figure it out alone." The words hung in the air. Sarah looked down at the baby. She smoothed Chloe's hair. "Well," she said quietly, "you're not alone." Friday night. The kids were asleep. The house was quiet. Mark and Sarah sat on the living room rug, leaning against the sofa. A bottle of cheap red wine sat between them. The TV was on low volume. They were just sitting. The adrenaline had faded, leaving a dull exhaustion. Do you remember sophomore year? Mark asked, swirling his wine. The Halloween party? Sarah groaned, tilting her head back. Don't. I was a pumpkin. I got stuck in the bathroom door. It was a wide costume, Mark said. And you, she pointed a finger at him, were a mime. You didn't speak for 4 hours. I thought you had a concussion. I was committed. You were annoying. You liked it. Sarah went quiet. She turned her head to look at him. I did, she admitted. I always liked it. The air in the room felt heavy. Not uncomfortable. Just charged. Mark looked at her. Her hair was messy. Her lips were stained from the wine. We almost happened that night, Mark said. We did, Sarah whispered. But then you met Jessica. Jessica was a mistake. He shifted on the rug, turning his body toward her. He was close enough to smell the vanilla body wash. Why are you here? Mark asked. Really? You have a job. You have a life. I'm here because you called. That's it. That's enough. She leaned in. Just an inch. Mark looked at her lips, then back to her eyes. He reached out. His hand cupped her cheek. Her skin was warm. She leaned into his touch. Sarah, he said. He moved in. The world narrowed down to the space between them. Then a sharp, piercing wail cut through the room. The baby monitor lit up red. Chloe's scream broke the silence. They jumped apart. Sarah blinked, looking dazed. She smoothed her hair, her face flushing red. I should get that, she said. No, Mark said, standing up. I'll get her. You rest. He walked out of the room. He didn't look back. By the second week, the illusion had set in. They took the kids to the park on Sunday. Mark pushed the swing. Sarah sat on the bench with Leo, reading a comic book. A woman with a dog stopped by the swings. Your daughter is adorable, the woman said to Mark. She has your eyes. Mark looked at Chloe. She had Elena's eyes. But in this light, yeah, they looked alike. Thanks, Mark said. The woman gestured to the bench. And your wife is great with the older one. It's hard to get them to read. Your wife. Mark looked at Sarah. She was laughing at something Leo said. She looked like she belonged there. On that bench. In his life. Yeah, Mark said. She's amazing. He didn't correct the woman. Later, in the car, Leo spoke up. That lady thought you guys were married, Leo said. Mark gripped the steering wheel. Yeah, people make assumptions. It wouldn't be the worst thing, Leo mumbled, looking out the window. Mark looked in the rearview mirror. He looked at Sarah. She was staring straight ahead, face red. She didn't say anything. The call came on a Tuesday. Mark was folding shirts. Sarah was making mac and cheese. Mark's phone rang. Hello, Mark. It was Elena. Her voice sounded tired, but strong. Good news. The doctors cleared us for home release. Dave is in a walking boot, and I have to wear a brace for my ribs, but we're discharged. Mark froze. That's great, El. We'll be there Thursday morning. I can't wait to see the kids. Yeah, they miss you too. He hung up. Sarah turned around. She saw his face. What? She asked. She's fine, Mark said. They're stable. They're coming home Thursday. Oh, the room went quiet. That's great news, Sarah said. She forced a smile. The kids get their parents back. Right, Mark said. I guess I should pack, Sarah said. She turned back to the stove and stirred the pasta aggressively. I have to be back at work on Monday anyway. Right, Mark said again. He looked around the kitchen. The chart on the fridge. Sarah's socks on the floor. In 48 hours, it would all be gone. He felt a wave of panic. It wasn't relief. It was grief. Chapter 9. Packing. Wednesday night was awful. The house felt heavy. Sarah was in the guest room. Mark stood in the doorway. Her suitcase lay open on the bed. She folded the oversized sweaters. She packed the leggings. You don't have to rush, Mark said. You could stay. For the transition. No, Sarah said, not looking up. They need their family back. They don't need the backup crew hanging around. You're not the backup crew. I am, Mark. That's the job. She zipped the bag. She turned to look at him. Her eyes were bright. We did good, though, she said. You kept them alive. You're a pro now. You won't need me anymore. The words hit him hard. You won't need me anymore. She walked past him to the bathroom. Her arm brushed his. It hurt. They ordered takeout. Thai food. It sat in the cartons on the kitchen table. They looked like wrecks. Mark hadn't shaved. Sarah's hair was a disaster. They were both wearing sweatpants. So, Sarah said, picking at her noodles. Back to normal life. You can go back to your quiet apartment and your Hinge dates. Mark stopped eating. I don't want to go back to Hinge. Sure you do. You love awkward small talk. I hate small talk, Mark said. I lied about liking it. He pushed the carton away. I don't want normal life, he said. Sarah put her fork down. Mark, you're tired. In a week, you'll be sleeping until noon, and you'll be happy we're gone. No, he said. I won't. He looked at her. The messy bun, the tired eyes, the sauce stain on her cuff. He realized he didn't just want her help. He wanted the noise. He wanted the 2 a.m. wake-ups, as long as she was there. He leaned over the table. Don't go, he said. Sarah froze. What? Mark, I have to go. It's not my house. They aren't my kids. Then make it yours, he said. Marry me. The fridge hummed. Excuse me. Sarah whispered. I can't go back, Mark said. He stood up and paced. I can't go back to being just your friend in a different zip code. I hated the chaos at first, but I only loved it because I was doing it with you. He stopped. He put his hands on the table. Elena is taking her kids back, he said. So let's have our own. Start a family with me. For real this time. On purpose. Sarah stared at him. Tears welled up in her eyes. Are you serious? She asked. We're eating cold noodles. You're wearing sweatpants. I have never been more serious, Mark said. I love you, Sarah. I think I've loved you since freshman year, but I was too stupid to realize that home wasn't a place. It was a person. He reached across the cartons. He took her hand. Stay, he said. Marry me. Sarah looked at him. She laughed, a wet, choked sound. Okay, she said. Mark blinked. Okay. Yes, she said, squeezing his hand. Yes, you idiot. Yes. He didn't wait. He rounded the table in a single, desperate stride, knocking a carton of rice onto the floor. He grabbed her face in his hands and kissed her. It tasted like peanut sauce. It tasted like the rest of his life. Sarah wrapped her arms around his neck. You're cleaning up the rice, she murmured against his lips. I'll clean up everything, Mark said, for the rest of our lives.